All right, here we go. And shout out to you, Diane, because I'm going to get this to you. We miss you, baby. We miss you.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to get you to, first of all, look at your handouts, because little by little, you don't have to worry about everything right now. Look at your handouts. So the master's table, which is today, 6/3/2025. Our subject today is what you see right here. Omniscience. That's our subject. Omni is the Greek word for all, and science simply means knowledge of. You know, we talked about last time I studied plant science, which is botany, and you all found out that there's things that was fruit that you didn't know was fruit. Huh? You didn't know that was fruit. But I meant to bring that book, and next time I'm going to bring that book. You're going to be surprised to find out what is fruit. Almonds are not nuts. Almonds are fruit, and we just eat the pit. That's the pit of a fruit plant. And we call it a fruit, but almonds are fruit. And we also talked about, believe it or not, rice is a caryopsis, but it's really a fruit. It really is. Legumes, like beans and these are real weird, and not there are nuts that are true nuts, like walnuts and cashews and so on. I won't get on that. We also found out, remember I talked about there's a area, and thank you so much, bless your heart. There is an area of a group of fruit called the schizocarp. And guess what that fruit is? Broccoli and cauliflower. We call them vegetables. But that's a fruit and it's a schizocarp because when it matures, and especially when it cooks, it splits. It schizzes, all right? Botany is the science of plants or the knowledge of. So what we see right here is science simply means knowledge of. So our lesson today is called Omniscience, or God knows everything.
Amen.
All right? God knows everything. And if you all notice how I stopped and pulled that fruit stuff in there, let me tell you a little bit about me, because this is just me. I'm very detailed. But let me tell you why God gave me his word in so much detail. And I notice there's certain things I teach you all out of this scripture, and I see you look at me like, what? That's in there? And it is in there, but the reason God had to give me concentrated forms of his word was because of how I grew up, what was lacking, what was missing, the absence of parents and guidance and direction. And I'm telling you, children that are denied those necessities, hell comes in. Do you hear me? Hell comes in. And I'm telling you, it's that concentrated form of the word. The reason I am so detailed, and sometimes a little annoyingly detailed, is because that's what God gave. He gave me the word in so much detail. It was that detail, that concentrated form. You know how when you get ready to wash clothes and there's dirt on the clothes, so you put your detergent in there, but there's certain kind of stains you got to pre-soak. And you got to add a little something extra. Well, God had to take his word and give me a concentrated dose, or I would be a statistic. I wouldn't be alive now. To fight the powers, the demonic force, y'all have no idea. What this little girl saw, what she witnessed, and what I experienced. The only thing, that's why David said, thy word is a lamp, thy word is a light. David dealt with a lot of darkness. You hear me? Mm-hmm. David dealt with depression a couple of times. He talked about offing himself. He said, I feel like flying away to be at rest. Didn't he say it? Flying away. There was no planes and hand gliders. David just felt like offing himself. He dealt with a lot of darkness. So he talked about the Lord is my light and my salvation. Thy word is a lamp. He kept talking about lamp and light because when you live in darkness, and those of you who had good mommies and daddies, bless God for them. Mm-hmm. All right? But I'm telling you, the way we grew up, and some of us didn't survive, and a lot of us died much too soon. Much too soon. Okay, so, all right, so we're going to go. Our lesson today is called God Knows Everything. Omni, Greek, science, omniscience. God has all the knowledge of everything. And Psalms 90, as you see what it say under there, the words of Moses. The only Psalms that Moses wrote is Psalms 90. That's Moses' psalm. A lot of people don't know that, okay? But Moses wrote Psalm 90. All of it is called the Prayer of Moses and the Song of Moses. And what did he say in Psalm 90, verse number 2? He said, before the mountains were brought forth, ever thou hast formed, before ever thou hast formed the earth and the world. He said, what? From everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. In other words, from as far back as you can go to as far ahead as you can go, thou art God. From infinity to infinity, thou art God. That means he knows everything. All right? In other words, he knows your past, all of it. He knows more than you don't. He knows your great-great-grandparents' past. All right? He knows your present, and guess what else he knows? He said, that's why he said, trust in the Lord with what? All your heart. And stop trying to figure this out. And this is why we need the Old Testament. We need the Old Testament to understand how much he knows. And sometimes when you get in certain things happening in your life, and it comes down and come at you for so many different directions, sometimes the only comfort you're going to have is he knows.
Amen.
Sometimes that's all you got. Nothing else is making any sense. Remember what Job said? He said, I looked in the front and in the back, everywhere I went, I couldn't find him. He was hiding from me. He was hiding. He said, but I know my Redeemer lives. He had to, sometimes that's all you can rely on. And he said, this is what Job said. He knows the way that I take. Did he say that? And when I am tried, I will come forth as gold. I don't know what's going on. Why did he let my kids die? Why did he let this? And my wife is going crazy and she's telling me to drop dead and my servants is turned on. He said, what is happening? But I know my Redeemer lives and he knows the way that I take. And when you realize how much he knows, you know what you'll say? You'll say what Job said. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, and blessed be the name of the Lord. Once you understand how much he knows, but you won't know till you get this word in you. All right? So now we're not going to go any further in our handouts. We're going to go straight to the lesson. Our lesson is going to be in 1 Kings, and this is where we were last time, 1 Kings. And we're going to go to chapter number, we're only going to backtrack a little bit from last time. Now, those of you who weren't here, you had a little bit of a disadvantage. But I'm going to get those of you who were here, because I have learned not to do this too. I've learned not to review too much, because I'm not going to teach the same thing over, especially for those who are already here. I've learned not to. God is teaching me how to teach, okay? And I'm still teachable in my old age. Thank you, Jesus. All right? All right, so so what we were talking about the last time, and then I'll get my notes here. What we were talking about last time. Yeah, oh yes, go ahead on, girl. You go ahead on, girl. Oh, that's my Nelda. My Nelda. We went to lunch last week. Me and Nelda, and we had a good time. We had a ball. We had a ball. Me and Nelda and Brenda. And it was a fellowship, y'all. I don't have any family in Arkansas. No family in Arkansas. So I'm telling you all have no idea. But this is a God thing. This is a God thing. Okay, so all right. So what we're going to start off with, Solomon died. And of course, Solomon was from the tribe of, come on. Judah. That's right, Judah. So when Solomon dies, who's going to automatically be his heir? His son. All right? So who is his son? You look at your handouts. Rehoboam, number 5, is Solomon's son. Number 5 on your handouts. Rehoboam, who is the son of Solomon. Okay, now let's go back to what I'm talking about. So soon as Solomon died, and God was mad at Solomon because all that David had done to set him up to where he didn't have to have any wars, Solomon loved the Lord, but he kept on taking chances. And what was his chance? He loved women, to where he had 700 wives. Get out of town.
Oh my God.
700 wives and 300 extras. He had concubines. 1,000. Come on, Solomon.
Yeah.
That averages out to about 7 women a day in a year. Get out of town. Okay, but this is how much. But what happened? God told him now who not to mix and mingle with. This is what Pastor Pat is talking about. This is what the God is telling his people in this hour. Stop taking chances. All right, because spiritual warfare is at another level. And when you're in an ungodly environment, it's a lot easier to be taken over. Okay, there was a time we honored Christmas and we honored everything, but now things have changed. All right, there were some preachers, not only in Colorado, but there were some preachers in Seattle who always come out and preach and hand out tracts. And this was last week also. These preachers were out there in Seattle handing out tracts, and guess who came out to fight against them? It was a great big group of drag queens.
Oh my God.
Big old linebackers dressed up like women. Okay, it was almost funny if it wasn't so sad. But I'm gonna tell you something, even though they thought they were women, they were men, and they were coming to hurt these preachers. They had to call the police, and I saw the video. I saw it. The police had to come and get these. I'm telling y'all, we're living in a different time now. You're not allowed to even disagree. You're not allowed to hurt feelings. And this could cost you not only your safety, but today is no joke. It could cost you your physical life. We're living in that time in America. All right. But that was something else. I saw it. Big old guy, but he dressed up like a circus clown and had all this stuff on shut up, John. I'm awful. Come on. All right. So Solomon died, and they immediately made Rehoboam the king. That was Solomon's heir, right? Okay, only Solomon, but God had told Solomon before he died that he had already had other plans. Okay, Solomon's going to make his son Rehoboam king, but God had already told him, Solomon, you are over a united Israel, but because of what you did, turning this nation, the biggest insult to God is to worship other. What's the first commandment from God gave Moses? Thou shalt have no other gods. I'm telling you, and of all the kings that defied God, King Saul was a mess, and other kings, but the worst thing you can do is to offer other gods. That's the greatest insult to God, okay? So God had already told Solomon, I'm going to take the kingdom away from your son, didn't he say it? And I'm going to give it to who? Who remembers? Your servant. I'm going to take the king, so it's no longer going to be a united Israel. I'm going to I'm going to take the kingdom away from your son and give it to your servant. Now, Solomon knew this, but he didn't tell anybody because he still wanted his son to be in charge, okay? But God had altered the plans. And so when Solomon found out that this servant that was going to try to take his son's place was who? Jeroboam, the son of his servant. Solomon put out a hit on Jeroboam's life. Solomon said, you ain't going to take my son. But I'm going to tell you something. When God alters the plan, there's no remedy.
Amen.
You know who has the first and the last word? God has, there's no remedy. All right, so now the kingdom is divided. Solomon died, and now the kingdom is divided. All right? And I'll show you how it happened. Nobody knew that God was going, because once Rehoboam became king, it was business as usual. All right? So now, all right, let me get to this. All right? Okay. Rehoboam was made king. And then what happened was they got together. Because remember when Solomon put out a hit on Jeroboam's life, Jeroboam ran. He had to run for his life. Who remembers where he went to? He escaped to Egypt. All right? He escaped to Egypt to get away from Solomon. And God took Solomon's life before he could take out Jeroboam. So when Solomon died, then people that knew that Jeroboam was in Egypt, they went and got him. And they said, Solomon, you don't have to worry about Solomon anymore. Can you believe this? Solomon is trying to take out Jeroboam, and Jeroboam was his servant's son. I'm telling you, sometimes it's not what's being done to you, it's who's doing it. This was a fellow. This wasn't somebody from another nation. This was somebody in the church trying to end him. All right? So now Solomon had died. Now let me get back on course. All right? So now Solomon had died, and what happened is that the people came to Solomon and said, the people came to Rehoboam. Listen, and let me back it up. People came to Rehoboam and said, Rehoboam, your father Solomon was hard on us. Because y'all remember, Solomon had even set up a slave trade. Remember we talked about that? Forced labor. Can you believe this? Somebody, with all that wisdom and knowledge he had, but he had a forced labor. So when Solomon died, they came to try to reason with Solomon's son. They said, Rehoboam, don't be like your father. Remember? Don't be like your fathers. They said, your father Solomon was hard on us. Will you be easier on us? And you know what Rehoboam said? He said, come back and give me 3 days to think about it, and I'll give you an answer. And in those 3 days, he consulted with the old men, and the old men told him, be nice to them. They'll serve you. All right? Be nice to them. And Rehoboam said, okay, thank you. Then he went and consulted with the young men his age that he went to school with. He said, what do y'all think? The young men said, I tell you what, be nice to them. Nothing. You tell them you think my father was hard on you. You wait till I get through with you. My father whipped you with whips, but I'm going to whip you with whips with blades on the end. Tell them that, Solomon. All right? Y'all remember? This is from last time. Just. All right? So what happened is, when the 3 days was up, and here come all the tribe, the united Israel came back to Solomon and said, what have you decided? What have you decided? He listened to the young man. He didn't listen to the old man. He listened to the young man. He said, I tell you what. He repeated their words. He said, you think my father was hard on you? He said, wait until I get through with you. He said, my father might have whipped you with whips. He said, but I'm going to whip you with scorpions, which is whips with blades on the end. They said, oh, really? Because they was already upset with him. So you know what they said? We're going to go find Jeroboam. All right? We're going to go find Jeroboam. And they went and got Jeroboam. And they said, we're going to make you our king. Now look at all this stuff going on, all this conflict. But guess what's happening? You know what's really happening? God's prophecy. Remember I said God knows everything. Omniscience, knowledge of everything. A lot of times in conflicts that you get all upset about, you getting all of, look, I can't believe this is happening in the church. You better watch yourself. God knows everything. And God was actually in this. All right? Even in just casual things, we're looking for God to move and he's going this, But sometimes, just like Pastor Pat said Sunday, sometimes God is just as casual and he's still moving. All right? Remember, Moses was out minding his own business and a bush caught fire. And he's seen bushes burn all the time. And all of a sudden, God was moving in something that was an everyday occurrence. I'm telling you, this is why we got to understand, know who you're praying to when you pray. He knows everything. And understand when he answers, it's not likely going to be an answer. You're looking for a big move and a big wave. And he'll just get in an everyday occurrence. And actually, so God already said he's going to divide the kingdom. And what happened, he allowed Solomon to take the advice of the young men and be hard on Israel. And Rehoboam, sorry. Thank you, Becky. I appreciate you. He allowed Rehoboam to take the advice of the young men. And what happened, if Rehoboam had any idea what taking the advice was going to do, he wouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. But once he took the advice, then 10 of the tribes said, we skip you. Skip you, Judah, because Rehoboam was of Judah. That's who Solomon was. That's who David was. They said, skip you, Judah. We're going to get our own king. And 10 of the tribes left Judah and went and got Rehoboam to be over them. All right? This was of God, because God already said it's going to happen. Again, omniscience, knowledge of everything. All right, and if you haven't got to that place where you don't know what's happening, what's going on in my life, why is he letting this happen? It's not fair. Omniscience. Sometimes it's all you got. He knows. All right, so what happened is, so Jeroboam, he took, this is where Solomon's kingdom was, and I'm setting this up for you. Okay, this is where Solomon's kingdom was. It was in Jerusalem. That's where it was called the city of David. That's where David ruled in Jerusalem. But when those 10 tribes turned against Judah, who was David's home, David's tribe, they had to leave Jerusalem. All right? So Rehoboam, who they made king over them, had to leave Jerusalem and go start his own kingdom. All right? So this is how that happened. So Rehoboam, not Rehoboam, y'all, I apologize. Some of y'all, no. And I'm going to tell you something. You got my permission. Jeroboam, all right, the servant of Solomon, he had to leave Jerusalem because they were all one united, but he had to leave Jerusalem and take his 10 tribes and start his own kingdom, all right? So this is so Jeroboam went and built a center. He went back to Mount Ephraim because Jeroboam was from the tribe of Ephraim. When I talk about these tribes, y'all remember where the tribes come from? And the reason I asked you these questions, because I just want to make sure you're with me. And let me tell you something, ladies, I do realize this, because see, I study for the lesson, and this is all I do. But you all have different other classes you go to. All right? I have to take that in remembrance. You go to this class, you go to that class, you have a book for this class, you have and so when you have to remember all these different things, this is why I'm slowing down, because you've got a lot that you're remembering and thinking about. So I'm not going to I don't throw questions out there as a gotcha. You're learning, and I applaud you for wanting this knowledge. I applaud you for that, okay? All right, so now, Jeroboam left and took the 10 tribes with him, and here we're getting to it. He took the 10 tribes with him to Mount Ephraim. But Israel still had to celebrate. Remember, Moses instituted holy days. He instituted the Passover. He instituted the Feast of Weeks. He instituted. So they still had to celebrate their holy days. They still had to come together as a people, because they still did their yearly ceremony, sometimes twice a year. But now Jeroboam done took his 10, and they're somewhere else. They're not in Jerusalem. So this is what Jeroboam said. Now, I want y'all to see the contrast between then and now. Jeroboam, a leader of the rebellious tribe against Judah, the 10, he said, I tell y'all what, he spoke to his 10 tribes. He said, y'all don't have to go all the way back to Israel, to Jerusalem to worship. Mm-hmm. Y'all don't have to, that's a long way. He said, that's a long way. And I know y'all still want to worship. Y'all still want to do the Sabbath. You still want to do the Passover. And he said, we'll do the Passover, but let me build you something here to worship. You don't have to go all the way. All right? It's only one God, supposed to be. But now we're going to break off in what we would call today a denomination, because we got our way. We see it over here, and this is how we. I tell y'all, these denominations, when I set up, these are man-made divisions. Amen. All right? And I'm telling you, what happens is our enemy gets in that to try to separate us. He does, all right? So what Jeroboam said, y'all don't have to go all the way back to Jerusalem. But what was his reason why he didn't want to go all the way back to Jerusalem? Y'all remember? He didn't want them to come back. That's it. Go ahead on, Terry. Girl, go ahead. He said if they go all the way back to Jerusalem, they might get to missing home and want to go back to the tribe of Judah and go back to the kingdom. Now, remember, before Jeroboam took over those 10 kingdoms, y'all remember when Prophet Ahijah met him out in the street? Prophet Ahijah stopped Jeroboam and told him, prophesied to him, and he knew Ahijah was the real deal. Prophet Ahijah said to him, he said, God said, remember, Prophet Ahijah had on a garment, and those of you who weren't here, he had on a garment that had pieces on it, and he pulled off 10 pieces of his garment and handed them to Jeroboam and said, God's going to give you 10 tribes. This is before all this division happened. So Jeroboam already knew the 10 tribes was his because a prophet told him. But when he saw Israel might be going back up, see, this is, you know what this is? This is a leader that's not thinking about the people. This is a self-serving, narcissistic, you my people, you belong with me, and I don't want you going over there with them. I'm telling you, when the ministry stops being about the souls and it starts being about you, we in some trouble. Mm-hmm. All right? So Jeroboam was one of those leaders that said, y'all ain't got to go all the way back to Jerusalem. But in reality, he didn't want them to go all the way back there and leave him. All right? He said they might even decide they need to kill me because I might be. He's thinking about himself. Oh, Jeroboam, and the fact that he used to be a servant, you think he would understand. He was a servant. God took him from servanthood to king and allowed him to be a king. And the only reason he was in a position of king was because of Solomon's sin. So he got that position by default, all right? But he said, these are my people and they belong to me. And if they go back to Jerusalem and go up there for the Sabbath. So this is what he said. He said, I'm going to do you a full Sabbath. We're going to have our own Sabbath. And he said, you have your Bibles in 1 Kings? Mm-hmm. All right. Okay, 1 Kings. All right, chapter number. We're going to go to chapter 12. Go to chapter 12. We're not going to stay there, but we're going to go to chapter 12. All right, and we're going to read verse number 27. And this is what he said, because they had already left Jerusalem. But Jeroboam said, if they go back there, this is what Jeroboam said. He said, if this people go to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord of Jerusalem, he said, what? Then the heart of this people will turn again to their Lord, even back to Rehoboam. They'll leave me and go back and be with him. Let me tell you something, Jeroboam, and whoever other preachers, get this. No, none of these people belong to you. Amen. God said all souls are mine. And you forget you were hired by God to lead these people. And you're not, even though you're king, you are their servant. The Bible said the greatest among you is the servant to everybody. He called the fivefold ministry, the apostles, prophets, he called them for the edification of the body. Everything he called them to do is for the people. We got to set up just the opposite, where the audience is worshiping the pulpit. But in reality, the pulpit is supposed to be looking at the audience saying, how may I help you? Mm-hmm. All right, this is how it's set up. So Jeroboam missed the memo that it's not about him. So he said, if they go back up there to celebrate the Sabbath and the Passover, he said, they're going to leave me. And I can't have that. All right. So verse number 28, whereupon King Jeroboam took counsel. And what did he do? Shame on you. Yep. He made 2 calves of gold and said to them, you ain't got to go back there. He said, this too is for you. It's too much for you to go to Jerusalem. Behold, I got you some gods right here. Isn't that what he said? Verse number 29. And he set up one in Bethel. Bethel was a hallowed place where Jacob had wrestled the angel. And said, God is here. That's what Bethel means. God is here. He set up an idol in Bethel, and the other he put up in another one of the tribe of Dan. Shame on you, Jeroboam. Shame on you. Of all the kings of Israel, he was doing the worst, setting up idols. The other kings did stuff that they shouldn't have done, out of order. But when you start setting up an idol, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That is a no of a no. All right? So verse number 30, and this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship. They followed him. They went into the holy place doing idol worship in Dan and in Bethel. And he made the house. Look what else Jeroboam did. Because if you set up a fake church, you got to set up fake preachers. Y'all see how over time things are still the same. Even though our culture or whatever, things are still the same. So he made a house of high places, and then he took priests and made priests out of people who were not even Levites. If you're not a Levite, you're not supposed to be a priest. But in your fake church, you got to have who you want. So you're going to get you some fake priests. And he made some priests. Ain't no telling what tribe they were from. God did not acknowledge these priests, but he set them up anyway. All right? So, and we'll go to verse number 32. And Jeroboam ordained the feast. This is a mock Passover. Y'all see this? Shame on you, boy. Just because you don't want to lose your members to Rehoboam, you don't want them to go back home. God already said through a prophet that they are yours. How dare you? Whoever you call the minister. This is why when you hear me pray, I say, God, you use me to give them and let you know that ain't nothing in me. If you get something positive out of me, I promise y'all. And only me and God know how messed up I really am. This girl is toe up from the floor up, okay? All right? Me and God know that. But I asked, you decided to take this vessel. You're the one that put me out there. So you got to go. I got to always remember who gets the glory here, all right? But Jeroboam got to filling his little oatmeal and thinking he's somebody, all right? What happened? Jeroboam ordained a feast, set up a fake Passover on the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is in Judah. He offered upon the altar, shame on you, Jeroboam, so that he did in Bethel, both places, sacrificing unto what? Calves that he had made, and placed Bethel, the priest of the high places. These priests were not even Levites. Look at this debauchery that he's got God's church in. Like I said, it's not always what's being done, it's who's doing it. All right? Verse number 33, the last one. So he offered upon the altar which he made in Bethel, and the 15th day of the 8th month, even that which he devised in his own heart. This was not God at all. And he ordained the feast unto the children of Israel, and he offered up on the altar. But now he's getting ready to go burn some incense. Now this is where we're getting ready to go, right here. And I don't know why this makes me laugh. It shouldn't, because it's sad. All right. Maybe I'm not right in my. Oh, anyway. All right. But chapter 13, chapter 13 and verse number 1. Behold, and I'm watching the clock. I'm making sure I'm watching the clock. Behold, there came a man of God out of Judah by the word of the Lord. So I want you to look at your handout. Remember I said look at your handout? Look at your handout. Behold, there came, and we're going to see chapter 13, verse 1. So, who we're talking about, because we're going to talk about here today, 3 priests. And only one will be mentioned by name, and that's Ahijah. That's why I gave you these handouts. Because, see, when I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you, especially things you haven't heard before, it's just going to sound, blah, 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 blah. I don't want that. I want to put something in front of you, and when we get to it, then I'll go to the handouts. So you'll have something to make reference to, and you can write on the handouts. While I'm talking, you can do some writing, okay? So we're going to talk about chapter 13, verse 1. There came a man of God out of Judah by the word of the Lord unto Bethel, and Jeroboam stood by the altar. So we got this King Jeroboam about ready to do something despisable and despicable. He's about to light incense to a fake God with fake priests in a fake church on a fake Sabbath and a fake, look at this mess. So y'all see the stuff that's going on today, and God is exposing churches and preachers like I've never seen. I'm telling you. So no matter who's doing what, you got to know that God knows. God's on the inside of it. Don't worry about who's in charge, who's running anything. Omniscience.